Hey friends, and welcome to Lucy Smiles Living Room Podcast. I'm your host, Diane Lozo, also known as Lucy Smiles. And on the podcast today, I am having conversations with Becky Mccoppin. Hi, Becky.
Hello.
We're excited to chat today, all things nutrition, skincare, outer beauty, inner beauty, and our past experiences that have allowed us to, both of us, dive into what it really means to live holistically. And Becky and I have known each other for several years now and have stayed connected through the work that she has been doing around cell health, around skincare, around holistic education, and all of the things in between. So before we get started, my new little habit now, thanks to Zoe on my last podcast, is choosing a card for intention for our conversation today, Becky. And so when
Love
you
it.
say when and it's always on point. Yesterday was powerful, last week's episode. So I will choose a card, or if you want to say when, and then we'll see what happens.
Okay. Okay, when?
Ooh, there we go. Wow. Confidence. This is amazing.
Interesting.
Wow, interesting. So
Okay,
confidence. Yeah. Release inhibitions, be confident yet humble, stand tall in your authenticity. Don't rely on external validation. Your potential is boundless. Let go of self-criticism and perfectionism. Isn't that kind of cool?
Wow.
This is kind of cool talking about,
That's perfect.
isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
So I am so excited, Becky, for you to be on the show. Before we get started, a little bit about Rebecca Mccoppin, or as I like to call her, Becky. So today's guest is Rebecca, or Becky, and Becky is a registered holistic nutritionist with a skincare specialty. Like many of us, and I do remember my past as well, Becky struggled with acne-prone skin from her teenage years and into her 30s. Everything from flaky, red, bumpy, covered in scars. And no matter what she has tried in the past, whether it was retinols, birth control, or cutting out dairy and other foods, she still felt like nothing was working. I've definitely been there. And so what Becky has done is she spent after hundreds of dollars trying to find the solution for her skincare. She had started to dive deep into what it meant to be into holistic wellness. And then just after a few short weeks through this new path, she started to see a difference. And that is what has created Becky's passion and purpose to now be helping other people achieve their goals with skincare, but also their goals from the inside out. So Becky, welcome to the Lucy Smiles Living Room Podcast.
Thanks so much for having me.
I'm so excited. And yeah, I'm so excited today to talk about nutrition and to talk about what it really means to feed not just our bodies, but really the energy that our body needs to thrive and the fuel that it takes to really create wellness with, I guess you would call it, our largest organ, the skin, right?
Mhm.
And so maybe we could start, Becky, by taking a step back on, again, what your story was in the past and the struggles that you had, because, many of us have had times in our life where we're looking for solutions and we're just like, it's like spaghetti up against a wall. And so if you can share, what that felt like for you and that path that got you to where you are now, just in essence.
Yeah, for sure. Well, like you said in your fabulous introduction, I've had acne. Uh, I don't even know how old I was at this point when it started. Probably 13 or 14. Like before I was even in high school, I was getting breakouts, and they were almost migratory. It was interesting. It started on my forehead, which is typical for teenagers. Just because, you're wearing hats when you're playing sports or helmets when you're playing sports or whatever, and you just get some bacteria clogging in there that can cause breakouts on your forehead. Older, it migrated to my chin and along my jawline, and also my temples actually, and then on my shoulders as well. And it was very different, the type of acne. On my face, it was more of the papule type acne, the ones that turn white and then erupt.
Wow.
And then on my shoulders, it was very cystic. So I would get the big painful bumps underneath my skin that last forever. They are not easy to get rid of.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and so that was my journey for a long time, all of my teenage years and almost all of my 20s actually. Um, and it was tough. It was
Yeah.
really tough. I or in the early days of high school, it was, whatever. It didn't really matter. I wasn't that concerned about it. But then as I got older and, you start wanting to be involved with the boys. You want to start
Yeah.
going out on dates and that kind of thing. And that's when it started to become kind of like
Problematic.
yeah, it became a problem and it started to get into my self-esteem and I never wanted to go out without makeup on and I never fully enjoyed having my picture taken
Wow.
if you know what I mean? Because I had so much
Yeah.
redness and yuck on my skin or a scab from having a breakout open up on me and you know, so I just never liked having my picture taken and I always felt the need to wear a t-shirt over bathing suits because
Mhm.
the acne on my shoulders was so bad. I never wanted anybody to see it. So I'd put a t-shirt on and then tell everybody that I didn't want to get a sunburn
Mhm.
and I'd
And
leave it at
it's hard though too because I think about high school or even like our adolescent years on a good day is hard. And so I think about, and it's ironic that we picked the confidence card today because the
exactly.
self-esteem that we have just with all of the emotions and all of the hormones that again, we don't even know what's happening. So it's not like we're Googling, we didn't even have, barely Google at the time, depending on how old you are, but knowing, like not knowing why. So not only are you struggling physically or emotionally and feeling that sense of like lack of self-esteem, unfortunately, as a teenager, is that you're also like so young that you're not there to try to look for all the solutions. Like it's like now you have to turn into almost like an adult or also
Yeah,
trusting the adults to help you to go down the right path. So
yeah,
it's hard. It's devastating.
yeah. And that's exactly it. You almost have to you have to go to your parents and be
Mhm,
like, this normal? What
mhm.
do I do? And then of course their first thing is, oh goodness, child has something wrong, let's get them to the doctor.
Yeah.
So then you're at the dermatologist and they're saying things like, oh yeah, yeah, food has nothing to do with it, you just need medication, like here's some retinol, just put that on. And
Mhm.
for me, I guess that works for some people, and lucky them if it does. But all that did for me was make my skin peel off.
Oh.
And
Mhm.
so not only did I have breakouts all over the place, that my skin was literally peeling like I had a sunburn. Like,
Mhm.
when you get a really bad burn and your skin just ends up like really
Mhm.
flaky, peely, that's
Yeah.
what my forehead looked like. So
Wow.
it did absolutely nothing. And
Mhm.
then at that time is when birth control pills also got introduced as well. Nothing.
Wow.
Nothing. So it never made a difference. And then yeah.
With your story with that too, so how old were you at the time then? I guess it was a myriad of like moments, but like at that time, where did you ever say to yourself, like, what brought you into this level of like, it is what I eat? Or did you have any inkling or intuition, like maybe what I'm putting in my body? Or what were you like? How did that look for you?
Well, as soon as I figured out that it was probably food was probably into my 20s, because then I was making decisions for myself, so I was the one doing the Google searching, what causes acne, what helps breakouts, how can I prevent breakouts, all the Google searches that you can do.
Yeah.
And so, you come across the acne diet, go dairy free. Um, for me, gluten free at the
Yeah.
time was still pretty much a non existent thing.
Wow.
Um, Now it's pretty mainstream, but
Yeah.
at that time, nobody was saying go gluten free or anything. It was more like stop with the dairy. That was
Yeah.
really the only thing. So that's what I did.
Yeah.
And I stopped drinking milk. I never loved milk, but I stopped that out. I stopped putting cream in my coffee.
Hmm.
Um, I reduced cheese. I didn't eliminate cheese completely, but I did reduce it significantly.
Yeah.
And then I stopped doing yogurt and those kind of things just to keep the dairy out. And
Hmm.
it made slight differences, but
Hmm.
it didn't get rid of it. It didn't ultimately prevent them from returning.
Right.
by the time that I actually figured out that acne is entirely related to gut health and liver health and hormone health, it
Wow.
it was in nutrition school when I was in my very late 20s.
Yeah. That's so
Uh,
interesting too. Were you shocked at all or excited, I guess? Because I guess there's always an emotional, when you find that something is going on within your body and then you find that solution. Did you feel like, how did that feel for you? Just like the aha moment?
uh, yeah, maybe not aha, but it was more like, whoa, cool.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now we have the answers.
Yeah.
And, because oh, puppies.
I
So,
know. She always likes to come, just so you know, whenever the conversation's getting really like cool, she's like, I want to be in here. She gets it. She
oh,
gets it. So yeah. So keep going.
um, yeah, where did we stop? Yeah, it was more like, okay, I finally have control.
Mhm.
I know what's doing this now. So now I know how to prevent it
Right.
happening again.
Yeah.
Now I
And
can.
to treat it as well too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, as
Mm.
a nutritionist, I'm not allowed to use the word treat.
Oh,
I
okay.
I use
Yes.
the word support
I was just
instead.
gonna say supporting this. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's just one of those things that, because I'm not medically trained, so I don't technically treat.
Yeah.
I support and
Yeah.
rebalance. I can use the word rebalance too,
Oh, I love that.
which is a really nice word. I like to use that one a lot. But
Yeah.
yeah, gut, not gut. Acne is all about balancing your gut, balancing your
Yeah.
hormones, and balancing your liver health, and it's amazing
Mhm. And
what
if I
happens.
think yeah, and when you think about just the myriad when we're in our teens, so there's so many things happening, it's almost like an implosion because you've got your hormones are shifting so quickly. As teenagers, we're probably not eating as consciously as we, should.
No,
And then I would also even go as deep as like the stress of our body, because again, I know that there's also the correlation between stress and microbiome, right? So it's almost so you're doing it's all of those. It's a myriad. It's like the hormones, the stress, and then the nutrition. And then at that time in our life when everything is shifting so quickly, so it makes sense then that there would be issues with acne in our adolescence. Would that be correct?
yeah, yeah, 100%, and we can go even deeper with that too, because as we're getting older, that's the point where we start seeing sicknesses as
Hmm.
well. Like you get strep throat or whatever from being in school and so close to other people, and
Hmm.
that's when the antibiotics start to
Right.
come in and other medications, and they're especially these days, and maybe in the last 10 or 15 years, is when um, things like ADHD or other disabilities, learning
Hmm.
disabilities that doctors will medicate kids for.
Yeah.
All of that can interrupt what's happening in your gut microbiome. So it doesn't necessarily stop at stress. It goes a lot deeper.
Right.
And there's
Yeah.
other things too that can do it, like surgeries, and
Yeah.
which was also the case for me because I had my appendix removed when I was 22.
Wow.
My belly has never been the same after that. So there's surgeries, and it also depends on where you live and what's in your water supply, right?
Wow.
Because
Mhm.
it, runoff, if you live in a more rural area, there's runoff that can
Right.
come from
Yeah.
farmlands that end up in your well water, or municipal water in the city is
Yeah.
not so nice. In
Not our
Burlington,
best choice.
in Burlington where I am, they fluorinate the water,
Okay.
which is good
Mhm.
for your teeth, but not so good for your gut. So
Right.
there's such a mixture of things that can
Mm.
really interrupt your gut microbiome and lead to skin disorders.
Yeah. And we're in this world of like over supplementation. One of the things I was sharing with a friend of mine is when I think about my own pantry, it probably has thousands of dollars of supplements because I need to take this and then that and then half of it's probably expired. I should probably do a inventory on my pantry list of like my supplements. So a lot of times people can get very overwhelmed, Becky, because they are, especially if you're on social media, myself included, it's the next detox, it's the next diet, it's the next protocol, it's the next, program. Nothing wrong with that. But I would love to simplify for people who, because again, it can show up in so many different ways. Like what do you feel would be, if someone said like, how do I get started? We'll talk about your programs and what you've been, providing for your clients and our community. But what are some of the top 5, maybe more simple ways to rebalance disruption that could be simple for people as a starting point, right? Because everyone's body is different. Everyone has different reasons why things maybe are not balanced properly. And so that's a very case by case scenario. But what are some of the go-tos that would be helpful for people? I could think of a couple off the top of my head and we can talk about that. But what would that look like for you? For people?
Well, when I'm working with a client, the first thing that I have them do is I call it mastering the basics.
Perfect.
And that is sleep, hydration, and movement.
That's
And
great.
that's the starting point. You can do all of the supplements in the world. You can, eat all of the kimchi and sauerkraut in the world to try to
Mhm.
rebalance your gut. But if you're not sleeping and you're dehydrated and you're stagnant because you
Yeah.
don't move,
Yeah.
then there, you're really not going to see much difference, maybe a little, but not
Yeah.
much difference. So that's where I
'Cause you're
start. And
Yeah,
I
because
don't
then you're
think,
still stagnant. Yeah. What's
yeah,
that?
stagnant blood is not good,
Yeah.
and you need to use your muscles.
Yeah.
Using muscles is so, so, so important.
Mhm.
Um, uh, what did I start to say?
So yeah, so the mastering the basics. So those are 3, because I was thinking too, and that's I feel differently in my body when I move it, when I sleep better, and when I hydrate. And so it doesn't have to be, a $5,000 annual program, which there are many beautiful things out there. But I think
Mm,
it's also what could we do? And we can get to bed earlier if possible, or if we could sleep in a little bit more if we have to get to bed late. We can always, find the right hydration, and moving our body doesn't have to be going to a HIIT class. It could be walking around the block, getting some sunlight and being outside, right? And so I think mastering the basics is so important. And so if you want to just maybe tie in as well, if you could touch on stress, like what that looks like within the microbiome, because I do call again, like the brain and the gut is like this is the second brain. Can you touch on that a little bit to give more clarity?
yeah, so the gut brain connection is ultimately the vagus nerve, which goes from the brain to the gut. And in when we're very stressed out, it can almost go into like a freeze kind of mode. Like you've heard the fight or flight
Yeah.
stress response.
Hmm.
That's exactly what that is. It's, you know,
Hmm.
it goes into freeze mode. And ultimately, what stress is doing is upregulating the production of cortisol, which comes from our adrenal glands, which are the little buttons that sit on top of the kidneys. And cortisol is a little robber. It it is really good at taking away from the production of our other hormones, for example. And it also uh, raises our blood sugar,
Oh, wow.
which is really hard and it can be quite inflammatory. So that's where it becomes kind of tricky
Mhm.
when stress is involved, because calming that down takes a lot of mindfulness. We'll put it that way.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then where it takes away from your gut health is that when you're stressed and in that constant fight or flight mode, digestion shuts off. Like because your blood and your resources are needed elsewhere, according to
Yeah.
your brain.
And that makes sense as I'm thinking about like my own, like I could feel that. And also if people are like, wow, like say if they're holding on to weight as well too, if their digestion is slowing down, no, then it doesn't matter if they're eating healthy, if they're not digesting. It's very interesting when you really like kind of peel back the layers of what that looks like. And then also when you think about then sleep and hydration and movement are going to lower your cortisol normal, like just it's
Yeah.
it's going to support you. And then all of those things start to run better. But it's interesting. I have a question for you around the blood sugar, because this is important. So a lot of times, people will think they're eating really well. Maybe they're not eating a lot of sugar. So would your cortisol still raise your blood sugar regardless of your nutrition? Because it's still creating it. Okay, that's impactful.
Yeah.
So it takes not just not eating sugar, it takes also not having not allowing stress in your life. So that's mind blowing to me.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it kind of comes from evolutionary roots of human anatomy and human biology. Because if you're coming, the analogy that everybody uses is, you come face to face with a tiger. What's your first response? Like, you're getting the heck out of there.
I'm gonna scream first, and then I'll.
Exactly. So you got fun. And on the inside, what's happening physiologically when you have a startle like that and you feel the need to run, your body floods your blood with blood sugar to feed your muscles so that you can then run, especially if you hadn't eaten anything, right? If you had no fuel in you as a caveman or something, and you didn't get a catch that day, so you've eaten nothing. You still need that power. You need the nourishment to your muscles to get the heck out of Dodge. And so that's kind of where it comes from. That's where the cortisol comes in to flood your blood ultimately, so that you can run. But when we're producing so much cortisol in our daily lives, it's really keeping that blood sugar up, just because that's what it does. That's what it physiologically does in the human body.
Yeah, it's amazing. So really it's not, and I've said this before, it's not just what you eat, it's what you drink and what you think, right? Because all of those things, that's why we're holistic nutrition comes into play. So can you touch on, and I'm not sure your view, and it's just an opinion, or do you focus on a specific lifestyle? And I don't want to say diet, but like, do you focus on a specific lifestyle around the choices of what food is best, or is it case by case depending on who you're working with? Like keto versus vegan versus vegetarian versus carnivore. Again, it could be a very loud conversation, or because people are like, well, maybe if I just do this, but it can't just be one thing. So can you touch on that, or do you have any value around that? Again, your opinion on that would be interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, people all have their preferences, right? As a nutritionist, I have a harder time, I'll put it that way. I have a harder time supporting extreme kind of diets like keto, for example. Keto is great. It's got some really, really good implications, but it's not a sustainable way. You can't go the rest of your life on a keto diet. You, especially women, I work specifically with women. And women kind of plateau on a keto diet. They get to a certain weight loss point. If keto is mainly used for weight loss with women, they'll get to that point and they just plateau, and then they're not getting any more results, so they go back to their regular way of eating, and then all of a sudden,
you don't want that. We want to have a sustainable lifestyle.
Exactly.
And another thing too is that, and I agree with you on that front, is that, and I think keto is great. I've been on keto. I've done fasting. I've, biohacked my body, and for certain specific reasons. And then I also realize the value, and I'm not the nutritionist, but I would love for you to touch on, because with keto being, and again, just for everyone, this is not, our opinions are our own. But when you think about keto, which is great, but I also know the value, especially we'll talk about women for a minute, is that we need a lot of protein. And so then over the last several years, 10 years ago when keto was starting to get like a real, voice, and then now going into like, we need a lot of protein. Protein seems to be, and I don't think protein's going away. I don't think that's a fad. I think our muscles need protein. And we can also go as far as talking about women's hormones during menopause, perimenopause, postmenopause versus, in our reproductive phase. And so I think that it can't be one size fits all. And there could be spurts of ways to cycle certain lifestyle choices to maintain an outcome that's healthiest for our body for those moments. So can you touch on that as well too, around nutrition for, with protein, like how important is protein? What's our best sources of protein? I'm curious as well too, because that's something I've been really looking into lately, in terms of my strength, my energy, and my ability to just optimize my vitality. I've been thinking like protein has been somewhere I've been doing a bit of a deep dive lately.
Mhm. Yes. Protein, protein, protein. So again, as I said a second ago, I have a hard time really getting behind the extreme
Yep.
diet. So this carnivore diet, I'm I'm not sure.
Yep.
So I won't touch on that. But protein is so 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 important, especially when it comes to, because I obviously I work with people who have acne, and a big part of
Mhm.
adult acne is blood sugar balance, and we absolutely positively need protein to
Right.
balance blood sugar.
Hmm.
It's just one of those things. Um, and yeah, as you said, we need it for our muscle composition. We need it for building blocks of hormones and neurotransmitters and all of those kind of things as well. All of our internal processes need protein. Our
Hmm.
skin is made of protein. So we need it. We absolutely positively need it.
Hmm. Going back to protein and skin, and I just something just came to me as well too. So there's also a big conversation around collagen. Everywhere you turn, there's a new collagen. And so I would love to talk about what is collagen, what is the importance of collagen, and why is that? Some for women, we'll go back to women, men too, but I think women love collagen because the skin, glowing skin. It's that the youthfulness of our skin, and anti-aging. That's never going to go away. That conversation is never going to, definitely not a fad. And so can you touch on what that is? Like what is collagen? How can we achieve more collagen intake, and the importance of that for not just the outer beauty, but the like what is that doing on the inside?
Yeah. So collagen is, how can I put this in a
Like
simple way?
elasticity?
So there is, from a supplementation. Do you want me to talk supplementation form, or
Whatever,
do you want me to talk in the
anything.
human body?
Yeah, what is it, and then how can we supplement, or what's the
Okay.
best sources?
So collagen is responsible for that bounce in our skin. It holds and supports. Collagen and elastin fibers are what we have in our skin.
Mhm.
Our bodies naturally produce it.
Okay.
However, as we get older, that production slows down,
Yeah.
which is why we start to see the skin, not looking so plump and
Not
nice.
looking so supple.
Exactly. Yes, supple's a good word. Um, so, but it doesn't just live in our skin. We also have it in our joints as
Okay.
well. So collagen supplementation can also be really good for people who have arthritis. I don't work with people who have arthritis, so I'll let
Yeah.
an arthritis nutritionist touch on that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, so again, it's naturally made in our bodies, and it's very supportive. That's why
Mhm.
it's very, very supportive. And
Mhm.
then I'll start with getting it from food.
Perfect.
You can get it from eating the skin of things. So eating chicken or turkey or whatever with the skin on is a good
Mhm.
way to get some collagen. Just chew it, chew it, chew it.
Yeah.
You can also get it from fish skin as well.
Oh,
So eating salmon or cod with the
yeah.
skin still on it. I
Amazing.
personally can't. I can't.
Oh, see, I love that. I love a good salmon skin.
Do you? Oh, I can't
Yeah.
do it. I can't do it. I'll eat chicken skin.
And
I'll
that-
eat chicken skin just
But
fine.
I
But
but I
nothing
have
else.
to ask you too then. So does that mean chicken wings are healthy?
Yeah, yeah.
Because
I
this
mean,
is
as long
like
as they
you're
don't.
giving me you're making my day so much brighter, Becky, knowing that
Put
I
it
can
in
go
your air fryer, not your deep fryer. Put it in your air
okay.
fryer
Okay. Okay.
with maybe some avocado oil or some coconut oil or
Yeah.
beef tallow or whatever it is that you use
Okay.
as your fat for when you're
Yeah.
cooking.
Yeah.
Not deep fried in canola oil. Let's not do
Okay.
that.
Yeah, we'll talk about the seed oils after too, because that's super important as well for
Oh
everyone.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. So getting it from food, but then also broths. If you
Oh,
do
bone
bone
broths, yeah.
broths, yeah,
Mhm.
honestly, stick it in your slow cooker, a little bit of apple cider vinegar and some water, and it'll
Mhm.
pull all of
Mhm.
that yumminess out. You'll also get some glutamine out of that from the bones too, which is so, so, so good for your gut.
Amazing.
So really
Amazing.
yummy ways to get collagen.
Yeah. And I love that going to the food source first, supplementation when needed, but I love like going right to the food source first, like going right to the like, the animal or whatever that is, the fish protein. And then as an idea to like up things is to then that's why they would call it to supplement, right? Not
Yeah.
as your main source, but getting it from food. That's amazing. Can you talk more about glutamine? Is it L-glutamine and what is that? Because I actually have that and I haven't really understood why that's so important, but I feel like I wanted to learn more about that.
Yeah, L-glutamine is L-glutamine is the supplemental form.
Okay.
But glutamine you'll get mainly from bone broths.
Okay.
And it's just super supportive for your gut lining.
Okay.
It's very calming, and it helps a lot with
Mhm.
if you have IBS or
Yep.
or even celiac disease. A lot of people with celiac disease find glutamine to be really comforting when they have flare-ups.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so it's very supportive. It's very calming.
Mhm. You know what's interesting I wanna touch on, I was diagnosed with celiac back in Vancouver many, many years ago. I've personally since naturally healed my autoimmune, and I'm not gonna say anything cures anything, but with the help of my naturopath for a long stint of time, like 10 years, was able to rebalance my microbiome, rebuild my villi, and had my blood work done and no markers of celiac, autoimmune, which is amazing. But I will say this is interesting. So during the first part of me rebuilding that, I I noticed I had this interesting skin, like really, really red flare up on my chest as I was rebuilding. Does that make sense? Because I'm thinking like your skin isn't your biggest organ. Like, and I feel like as I was, it was almost like it was coming out, like as you're building the inside out. So is that something that would be like for people to see, like, whenever you have hives or when people are detoxing, it comes through the skin.
Mhm.
So it was interesting for me because if I didn't do the work that I had done with my naturopath, I could have thought there's something wrong with me. But really what I was doing was, would that be like healing from the inside? It went away and then I started to feel better, but it was a reaction of potentially those toxins coming out.
Mhm. Yeah, kind of a
Yeah.
purge maybe.
Yeah. But it
Yeah,
was
the skin is
interesting.
a detox organ, so it will do that. A lot of people find that their acne gets worse before it gets better. That
Right.
doesn't always happen with people, but it can. So that it could
Mhm.
have been. Yeah. I mean,
Mhm.
again, I'm not a doctor, so I can't
No, of
really
course.
diagnose anything, but we can make that connection
Okay.
to say perhaps, yeah.
Yeah. So when you're working with your clients, are you like say for some women in their 30s and they're going through acne, is there a correlation or what have you seen that maybe, for the audience where can you touch on a couple of things that you've seen around like why that was happening, a couple of cases like obviously with no names, but was it autoimmune? Is it the body fighting itself? And how can you take us through the process of say you're working with someone who is like confused, they've got acne, they're having massive skin issues, and you're taking them on that journey. Can you share like a bit of an example of what that could look like for them on the other side to give some hope to people who may be saying, this could be an answer for me? And it's going to be case by case and different for everyone. But what have you noticed? Maybe are there some similarities, some themes of what you're seeing from a health perspective?
Yes. Yes. So acne is not uh, autoimmune. It's just an inflammatory skin condition.
Yep.
It I'm hearing a bit of an echo. Sorry.
Oh,
Are you hearing that?
no,
No, no echo. Okay, maybe it's just me. Hopefully the recording doesn't get it then.
don't worry.
Okay, starting over. Yeah. So acne is not necessarily oh gosh, autoimmune.
Yep.
It's more of an inflammatory skin condition. So it's immune related, but it's
Okay.
not necessarily the immune system going into attack mode on your skin. That would be more of psoriasis.
Ah,
Psoriasis is an
perfect.
autoimmune skin condition.
Okay.
So acne is more just inflammation and then the symptom coming out on your skin.
Got it.
So I can share. I'll talk about a client. I'll talk about a client that had really good success
Hmm.
more recently. She was getting mild acne, but also she was getting this like a rashy kind of flare up, and it would happen kind of around her midsection and on her back. So not necessarily acne, but still her skin was inflaming over something.
Yeah.
And she wanted me to make her some meal plans just to see what was going on and see if she could balance it out using her meals.
Mhm.
And so, of course, me being a nutritionist didn't stop there. So I sat with her and we looked at a little bit of her health history and such, and we found out that there were just little things in the way that she was prepping her meals that were setting her off. So I worked with her as well, with the movement, hydration, sleep, all of that. We started there, and I worked with her to give her some meal prep tips. We'll call it meal prep tips that she could take. And one of her things was not using vinegar, because vinegar can make your skin flare up if you have yeast problems on your skin. So we had her eliminate vinegars. She was a pretty good eater to begin with, and she was a fairly good cook as well. So she was a fairly easy client to work with, which was great. So we had her go vinegar free. And we put, if she was doing a salad, for example, we did lemon juice instead of a vinegar. So oil and lemon juice or lime juice or whatever she wanted. And the skin rashes went away, and she was able to prevent more. And then from there, I gave her foods that were very gut supportive. And
yeah, can you share some of them? Like, what are some gut supportive foods? I know we hear about kimchi. I don't know if you say kefir or kefir. What are some of the go-tos for that to help to kind of soothe the microbiome?
Yeah, so fermented foods like kefir or sauerkraut, those are going to introduce bacteria. They're probiotic foods, so they're going to put bacteria into our gut. Right. When it comes to, and those are great. Those are awesome. They're a really good way to help rebalance what's happening in the gut. But as far as foods that you can use to not further interrupt what's happening, because so there's a difference between feeding your gut the good stuff and feeding your gut stuff that's interrupting what's already in there and making it angry. So, which is
the angry gut
results in acne.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of find that balance when it comes to feeding your gut. One of the biggest ones with gut health is sugar. Sorry, sugar. So to stop interrupting her gut, we stopped with sugar. Like I had her remove ketchup, which is a vinegar condiment. So we took out ketchup so that she
ketchup is sugar and vinegar. I mean, you can't get any worse than that, can you?
Yeah. And
sorry, everyone.
Sorry. Bottled salad dressings was another one. Vinegar, but they also put sugar.
And they also put canola oil.
Oh, yeah.
Like if just this is like a side note is don't be fooled, people. And again, if you love it all day long, but you're going to a health food store, I'm not going to name names. I started to look at salad dressings, the ones that were $8.99 in say Canada, and it was super expensive here in Mexico. And I just took a minute to look at it, and it's canola oil, it's sugars, and then the vinegars. But that I started making my own, and I actually feel the difference and we'll go back into seed oils after, but I could feel the difference in my body of just not holding on to excess water, not feeling like my cells were constipated when I don't have that in my body, but it's hidden in everything, right?
It is.
Take a look at the labels.
They're so sneaky, especially I find with salad dressings, because they'll say, made with olive oil, but then you turn it around and it's like,
they have a dot with a little drop of olive oil.
A little bit, but the rest of it is canola oil.
Yeah, absolutely.
Seed oils are a whole other beast.
I know. So so make your own. I know, truly. But that's why I love making my own salad dressing.
Me too.
And it's so much cheaper. I mean, I'm saving myself $8 a bottle.
Oh my gosh, yeah, so much
depending.
cheaper.
Yeah.
I give my clients recipes,
good.
in my program, I have, because salad dressings can be so boring when you're just doing like an oil and vinegar or whatever. So you got to
Yeah.
spice them up. So I have loads of salad dressing
Oh, I
recipes so
love
that
it.
you're not stuck using the same dressing all the time.
Yeah,
Great.
absolutely. Hmm. So vinegars, yeah. So you took out her sugar, took out the vinegar, and that's amazing. And people may not know that vinegar is a culprit for them. So working with someone like you would just it's innate for you because this is the work that you're doing. So
Mhm.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So
And then
how long?
it's
Yeah.
balancing blood sugar as well. So
Mhm,
we really made sure that she had a lot of protein, that she was
mhm,
prepping a lot of protein and the
mhm.
right proteins as well. You had asked me that before and I didn't answer it fully. Uh, so things like chicken, salmon, cod, beef is really good. Some people are a
Not on.
little apprehensive
Yep.
about beef, but don't be apprehensive about beef.
Yeah.
Be apprehensive about pork if you're going to be
Right.
apprehensive about meat.
I'm apprehensive about pork for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, so we just made sure that she had a lot of lean protein in
Mhm.
her meals, and that she was getting enough of it. And
Wow, it's amazing.
yeah, yeah. Oh, and
Mhm.
then of course we had her do like sauerkrauts and those
Right.
kind of things,
Fermented.
and yogurt.
Yeah, that's amazing. So
Yeah.
in your going through school, holistic nutrition, what were some of the things that maybe surprised you, if anything, that you thought, "Wow, this I had no idea?" Where, because again, like you're on that track and then learning. Was there anything that came to you that was an aha moment for you around what can support the body versus maybe what you weren't aware of before?
Yeah, it was probably one of the biggest things that really caught me was because so I was born in the 90s, or I am the 90s kid. I was born in 1990. I'll just
Yeah.
let everybody
Yeah, yeah.
know. So as I was growing up, I grew up, and as I was learning to feed myself, I was growing up in that time where fat free
Oh my
was
gosh.
the thing. And then
Yeah.
when I got to nutrition school, we're talking about fats from,
Mhm.
like avocados and olive oil, and like don't be afraid of fats. You
Yeah.
need the fats, and here is what fats do inside your body. And
Mhm.
I'm kind of going, why?
Yeah.
Why is fat free the way that people are eating?
Yeah.
Why is this not known?
Right.
So yeah,
Yeah.
one of the biggest things for me was fats, learning about fats and how absolutely positively necessary they are.
And we could even think about it like in our own experience. I went through the fat-free phase. I don't remember how old I was, where I was like, rice crackers and honey or just and I mean, you could tell that it's not working because you're starving.
Wow.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's only so many rice cakes I could like ingest, still
And
starving, but yet
just
yeah, and then the exhaustion that would come from it, the lack like, my brain would just be fried, and this was, like,
yeah.
during college. So here I am, going through my college years and starving my brain and trying to use my brain at the highest level, but I wasn't fueling my brain at the highest level. So it's just it's anecdotal, like, you could feel it, right? So,
Totally.
yeah, that was an amazing yeah, the switching of the food pyramid, putting it right upside down and getting back to those delicious, healthy, high level of really great fats for the brain. Like you said, like even like ghee or butter,
Mhm.
avocados, all of those, but it was a mind shift for people. Like it's that cognitive dissonance of like not believing it, just like, well, this can't make sense. We were taught this for so long. And so it is about turning it on its head and really taking a critical look at what that is and
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
exploring it, because I think people were afraid. I think it was, I'm gonna get fat from fat. You don't get fat from fat, you get fat from sugar, right?
Yes. You get
Yeah.
fat from sugar and insulin resistance. Yes.
Yeah. Can you
Well,
touch on that
generally,
actually?
generally, generally.
Generally, of course,
There
of
are
course.
other
There's so
circumstances.
many other of course. So can you talk about what that means when you think about, like, how does sugar like, how does our body respond to sugar? What is insulin resistance for those that may be, like, not really understanding what that is? Can you just touch on that generally?
Yes, because again, being an acne nutritionist, a lot
Yeah.
of people have acne because of polycystic ovaries. PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, that's a big
Mhm.
contributor to acne. And
Oh,
hand in
wow.
hand with that comes insulin resistance. So it's kind of one of those like, what's the chicken, what's the
Yeah.
egg? Which one came first with PCOS and insulin resistance? So good. That's an awesome question. So the best way that I can describe insulin resistance before I get in what sugar does is I'll use an analogy. People like analogies.
Yeah.
So imagine or picture for our younger watchers, if you're watching an old movie, perhaps, when milk used to be delivered to doors or a newspaper, like if you had a paper route as a kid.
That was my first job.
Yes. Okay, we'll use that analogy. We'll use paper route analogy. So if you were taking your time with it or whatever, you'd go and knock, knock, knock on the person's door and drop the newspaper. And then you'd go to the next, knock, 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 drop the newspaper. On to the next. Or you could be the kid on a bike who would just launch a newspaper at and hope it landed on their porch. Yeah. So using that analogy, insulin gets secreted from our pancreas when we have had sugar, or not sugar, glucose. I'll use glucose because glucose is what sugar is when it comes from food. So insulin's job is to take the glucose that's floating around in the blood and shuttle it into our body cells. So that can be skin, muscles, organs, everything that is, all cells use glucose as their fuel. Mm-hmm. So doesn't matter where it goes. Insulin takes it out of the blood and into the cells. And when you think of insulin resistance, you can almost think of that paper boy who on a bike who's just launching papers right, left, and center. So rather than it being an organized fashion, glucose molecule, cell, glucose molecule, cell, glucose molecule, cell, you're getting, okay, glucose molecules. It makes sense. It's just a mess. And glucose is just floating around in the blood because it hasn't been shuttled into a cell properly. And and then other cells are starving because they didn't get glucose. So it's just the mess. The mess
it's like chaos. Yeah.
And that, I'll get a little scientific for a second, is very hard on our mitochondria inside of our cells, which is the powerhouse, as they call it. It's where energy is manufactured inside our cells for living. So that is very hard, and that creates inflammation in our body, which can lead to inflammatory skin diseases. Like, So, is that clear?
Yes, totally. I picture, it makes sense. It's chaos. Okay. So it's yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So then in terms of sugar, going from food, if we're eating too much sugar, it can get messy with our gut bacteria. Some bacteria strains can die from having too much sugar in the diet. And then also that's where cravings can start to come in as well, because there's a theory. This is theoretical, but there is a line of thinking where strains of bacteria will get so used to having their nutrient supply from sugary foods, and then when that sugary food is gone, they're going, I need more of that. You need to feed me more. Wow. I'm not full yet. I need more. And that's where cravings come from, which just leads to more sugar and more.
Wow.
So I think that's a theory. I haven't read any further about that being proven, but it makes sense in my mind as a nutritionist. So sugar is just one of those, it's a bad seed. And it's everywhere.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too, I'll share too, on podcasts I did with this woman, Zoe, we were talking about alcohol and talking about like the neurotransmitters of the brain. So it's literally the same conversation, and there is science around this. So I mean, we can correlate the two, but when the brain or the body is looking for something and then we're trying to feed it, it doesn't mean it's good. So it could be that bacteria is looking to be fed with something that it's familiar with.
Yeah.
And so then, and that's where there's like just, I mean, there's a myriad of like opportunities to marry those both conversations of sugar, because again, alcohol turns to sugar in the body. Your body can't digest alcohol. So it's like running around like chaos. So I feel like that it makes sense to me based on the conversation I just had for the same reasons. And I'm sure there's science around that.
Oh yeah.
That's
Yeah,
interesting.
there's a lot more, especially with alcohol, because there's dopamine involved in the addiction to
Yeah.
alcohol and with
Yeah.
sugar. And with
Yeah.
sugar. Sugar
It's like,
does get in
it's a,
there and
it's a different poison. It's a,
dopamine
yeah.
hits. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's like people, your grandma always said, choose your poison. And it's true. Oh, and Angel doesn't want to hear this conversation.
Yeah, I like my sugar.
I know. No, she's not, she's on raw. She's all good. She gets her omegas. She gets her xenobiotics. She gets her prebiotics as well too. So
Oh, good.
she's great. So I would love to ask you, Becky, just in terms of, because a lot of times when we're having these conversations, I don't want to scare people, get rid of your sugar. You can't eat sugar. But I would love to talk about like, what are alternatives then? Right. So I know there's a couple of amazing things that I love. Like you could have chocolate pudding made with avocado and cacao, which is like amazing. So I would love for you, so that I don't have people like walking away scared, like, what do I do now? So I would love for you to share maybe what are some of the foods that people crave and then amazing alternatives for them. So,
Yeah.
like chocolate, avocado pudding, like what are some of the things that you've been using in your recipes that you can divulge some of your
Mhm.
secret recipes just in terms of ideas for people that they can like get rid of this and change it for this, because we don't want to take anything from people. It's devastating, but how can we supplement food for better food?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the approach that I take with my clients as well. Like I don't want to be fully robbing you of food, because that's not a sustainable way to bring changes to your life. We need to,
Yeah.
we need to take out the things that are bothering you, but we also need to put something back in that one is yummy
Yeah.
and two is going to nourish you. So yeah, I mean, you touched on chocolate, so I'll start there. There's nothing wrong with chocolate.
Hmm.
Wrong with chocolate, but there's a big difference between eating those like sugary fake. I don't know what I don't eat regular chocolate bars like a
Yeah.
Kit Kat bar or something. There's a big difference between eating a Kit Kat bar and eating like a nice dark chocolate.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, that's not full of sugar and full of dehydrated milk solids and whatever else that they put in those. So big difference. There's nothing wrong with chocolate.
Yeah.
Keep your chocolate. And yeah, you can make the high fat avocado puddings and like the cacao and avocado and a little bit of maple syrup. I do a little bit of
Hmm.
maple syrup on mine.
Yeah.
And gosh, I love it.
Amazing.
I'm going to make one later today with tofu. I'm going
Oh,
to
okay.
do tofu, cocoa powder, and a little bit of maple syrup just for that
Yeah.
a protein chocolate
Yeah.
pudding, I guess you can call it. So
And
I'll
you'll
let you.
notice too when you eat things like that, like I'll do dark chocolate and I'll have almond butter, or I'll do dark chocolate with like majuli dates. So it's still sugar, but you're
Yeah,
not going to eat as much as you would if you had a whole chocolate bar. And I don't
exactly.
think you could even call them chocolate bars. That's actually like not real marketing. It's actually just a candy bar. That's why
Yeah,
they call it that in the States, is that they're using the word chocolate, but it's not actually chocolate.
yeah.
It's milk. It's milk solids, like you said, with sugar. So
Mhm.
so that's another thing too, is like noticing what satiates our brain will allow us to see what's healthy for us. Because if it's not satiating the brain and it's not satiating the hunger, then there's something empty there to be said, right?
Yeah, quite literally. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
so nothing wrong with chocolate. It's got
yeah.
good stuff in it. There's some science behind dark chocolate and
Hmm.
melatonin production, which is awesome. And chocolate has magnesium in it too, which is super good for your
Hmm.
gut. So,
Hmm.
and also it's
Amazing.
great because of the bitterness. You can't eat too much. You get sick of
Hmm.
it at a
Yeah.
certain point. So you get that chocolate fix, but then you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any maybe a couple of other options? And I actually want to go to melatonin and serotonin before we close out. I think that's really important. So
Sure.
what are some of your other favorite go-to high nutrient dense treats or meals that help us to not miss those things like the burgers and the fries so much?
Mm, excellent question. As far as something salty goes,
Help me, because
I
I'm a salty woman. I
are
love
you
my
salty?
salt. Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, celery
Real.
is what I go to with salt for salty cravings. Yeah, like celery and nut butter
Yes. So good.
is It's just so good.
Yeah.
And it's a little naturally salty.
Yeah. And it's
On the
crunchy, which I
core.
think there's a thing to be said for crunch.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
And then nuts as well.
mhm,
You can get nuts that are salted. You got to watch for like canola oils and stuff
of
on them
course.
too, which is
Yeah.
trickier to do. But
Yeah.
salted nuts can be a really good way as well to
Mhm,
get some salt
mhm,
cravings in,
mhm.
or salt cravings taken care of rather. And then what else are people craving these days? We got sugar, we got salt.
So I'm
Uh,
thinking like when you go with fries, you could do like yam fries, sweet potato fries, air fryer. Like, what do you feel about,
yeah,
starchy vegetables? Like those are
love
you a
them.
fan? Yeah,
Yeah,
perfect.
I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I work with they will give you some blood sugar stuff because the starch
Mhm.
just naturally raises blood sugar. It's what they do because it is a carb.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, but there are ways to eat meals. There are certain orders that you can do to eat your meals in to prevent huge blood sugar spikes. So I work with my clients on that. Um, and that just helps to kind of flatten that glucose curve. So one, you're not hungry a half hour later, and two, you're not left with cravings late at night.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, but I don't have a problem with them. If you're doing them at home, do them in your air fryer with
Yeah.
a little bit of coconut oil or olive oil on lower heat, please.
Right.
Um, yeah, and then a little bit
Okay.
of sea salt on them or pink salt on them, whatever you use. They're great.
Yeah. That's
If you're in
amazing.
a restaurant, it's a little bit harder to do. But there are things in restaurants that you can do. If you did want to have the sweet potato fries, sure, go ahead. But
Yeah.
maybe do your burger without the bun,
Exactly.
and you
And
can just
some of the things that, I believe too is that it's not about being that extreme, like you said, like not believing in extreme diets. And so I think for me, the way that I feel is the best we could do for our body for the most part. Then when you're going out with your girlfriends or with your husband, or there's an event, there's a wine and cheese, then you're you're not hurting your body so much because you're setting it up for success. So
yeah,
then when you do the seed oils, if you're gonna, we can't tell what oil they're using at a restaurant, let's be honest. But then that you're kind of setting yourself up because then you're treating your body so well that it's able to withstand any of those things that may not be the best thing for us, right? So
exactly.
yeah, I mean
Yeah,
it's like that 80-20 or 90-10, if you will, or depending on the time of year. If you're on vacation, maybe it's 50-50.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
could you touch on, speaking of vacations and sun and sunshine and vitamin D, can you touch on the correlation between melatonin and serotonin? What does that do for the microbiome, and how can we maybe support our systems within that as well? I think that's a really key aspect of wellness and sleep and just gut health.
Yeah, yeah. Well, melatonin and serotonin. I mean, I guess they have a relationship, but they kind of don't as well. Like, at least not in what I do.
Yeah.
They don't really have much of a symbiotic relationship. I'm sure they do to a certain degree, but I'm not a
Mhm.
neurobiologist, so I
Yeah.
really can't speak to that. But in terms of gut health and each of those neurotransmitters, there's definitely a connection because serotonin, or at least the majority of it, is made in the gut. And
Mhm.
serotonin is our happy hormone. It's
Right.
our
Yeah.
feel good hormone. So, or neurotransmitter rather. Um, so if your gut is very unbalanced and interrupted and angry, as we called it earlier, then
Mhm.
your serotonin production can suffer from
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And then you get things like mood. You have mood problems, you're grumpy,
Mm.
and then add blood sugar issues on top of that, and you're hangry, so you're grumpy from your serotonin, and then you're hangry because your blood sugar is low, and it's just a cascading effect.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
I don't. I personally don't work a lot with people's serotonin levels because
Mhm. Yep.
it's further away from skin health than
Yeah.
melatonin, for example.
Right.
Um, Melatonin is made in the brain. It's not necessarily made in the gut,
Right.
um, but it is also not just meant for our sleep habits. It does put us to sleep, and it has a symbiotic relationship with cortisol. So, in a perfect world,
Mm.
when your melatonin is high and you're ready to go to sleep, your cortisol should be low. And then
Wow.
as
Yeah.
you sleep and you're ready to wake up, your melatonin is going to start to reduce and your cortisol is going to start to come up a little bit, which is what's going to
Mhm.
wake you up. in the morning,
Mhm.
assuming you don't wake up to an alarm on a
Yeah.
Saturday. This is what's happening on a Saturday
Yeah.
morning. So, um, so they have a relationship,
Yeah.
cortisol and melatonin. And melatonin is also a heavy duty antioxidant in the body. It's not just meant for sleep.
Mhm.
Um, it really helps our cells out in terms of protecting them from damage,
Yeah.
oxidative damage. So it's one of those things. I supplement melatonin every night, 8 p.m.
Oh.
to the tongue.
Oh. Yeah.
And it's great. I absolutely love it.
Mhm.
So it's a great conversation piece, and
Mhm.
it's necessary for daily life.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's important too because we wanna be like, as I'm hearing you talk and sharing all of the different reasons why it's so important to take such obviously best care of our health is that you're setting yourself up for certain things at certain times. And I think that's the most important thing because also even like it'll have to be a whole other podcast, but like seasonal foods, seasons wherever we are in the world, it's going to be completely different. So even
Mhm.
like for myself as a Canadian now living in Mexico in the last 3 years, is that my habits have shifted, my sleep patterns have shifted, and I don't need to stay the person I was in Canada because I'm not in that same environment.
Mhm.
And so, it's really about, I think I would say, Becky, at the end of the day, it's truly just listening to our bodies and that intuition that comes from we always know what we need. We have all of it inside. And then being able to work with someone like you so that we can understand things that maybe we don't know, but allowing that level of support. Because I think about for you, even just the work that you're doing, which is significant for women with, skin and holistic nutrition, is my past, when I was in my early 20s, someone changed my life. That was someone like you who, I would have had no clue what to do until I met that woman. And when I think about how you are serving women who they're struggling, they don't have the answers, and they just truly don't know where to look. That gift of service that you have is so supportive because you're giving people's life back. And it may sound crazy, but it's not. It's like as your story was when you were a teenager, is like what all things had been affected by that struggle that you were going through. And when we can actually have that go back to the confidence and build that self-confidence, not just from the outside, but on the inside, we get to show up better in the world whenever we feel better. You do better when you feel better. So I think it's just really beautiful the work that you're doing, whatever I can do to support you. And I know that you come straight from the heart. I've known you through, before going through this nutrition, and your empathy is what really just drives your heart's service. So I'm so grateful. It's amazing. And I know that you also have some things that are coming up in the work that you're doing that can support others. So I'd love for you to share, where can we find you? What's going on, in terms of your community, and how can we have an opportunity for those that may be looking for the solution with you? I would love for you to share.
Yeah, well, I am mainly on social. I'm on Facebook and pardon me, Instagram and Threads as
Yeah.
well. I like doing Threads because I get to talk to people.
Ah,
Um, yeah, so my handle for social is natural acne strategies with dots, natural dot acne dot strategies.
amazing.
I have a community Facebook group as
Oh,
well that's
perfect.
totally free. Also called Natural Acne Strategies.
Mhm.
Totally free for ladies with acne to just come in and have that conversation. If you're struggling, if you need some support with whatever you're going through with your skin, come on in, join us, join the
Mhm.
conversation. It's there for you. Um, and then yeah, that's pretty much me. I
Yeah,
keep it.
and you have a beta course happening as well too, I think. I wasn't sure if it was sold
Yeah,
out yet or if is it full, or do you still have I know you only had a handful of spaces left.
yeah. So I have just moved my nutrition program online so that more people can reach me and work with my coaching. And I just recently moved it online, so I'm in kind of a beta testing
Perfect.
uh, situation with it. So I do have 5 spaces
Oh,
available, and I have discounted the price for beta test participants by 50%
oh.
of my regular coaching fee. So that's totally available too. I would say if that's of interest, perhaps just give me a follow on social and
Mhm.
send me a quick DM or join the Facebook group, whatever you want to do, whatever is more convenient. And I'm happy to have that conversation
That's amazing.
with whoever needs it.
I love it. That's exciting. So I'll make sure to put all of that, all of the links, all of your social media in the show notes. And I like to ask my guests a question before we close out. I never know what it's going to be, but I feel like the question I would ask of you, Becky, is you do so much work and there's so many, deep dives, nutrition, supplementation, mindset, all of those things. What would be the one light of hope that if you can just tell any of your clients or anyone listening that has helped you? Is there like one light of hope message for people who may be struggling with their health, whether it's acne or not, that can help them to just, bring that level of groundedness? What would you like to share with people that maybe you wish that you had when you were confused as well too back in the day?
Yeah, I mean, specifically for my girlies out there who have acne still, there are answers.
That's amazing.
That's about all I can say. There is an answer. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. You do not just have to live with it.
Wow.
There is answers. There are answers.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it actually just is transferable for so many things as well too. So that's wonderful. Well, Becky, I'm so grateful. I just love following you, the work that you do. Again, it's so impactful and so significant for those. And I just love the fact that we were able to kind of dive in. And again, as we mentioned, there's no specific opinions. These are just, ideas and insights that Becky has. And I'll make sure to put all of her information in the show notes. And so to my audience, as always, my tagline is follow the magic that ignites your inner essence. And having Becky on the show as well too just reminds us that, a lot of times in our life, our traumas or our experiences or things that maybe that we struggled with when we were younger can help us to find that path of purpose and passion like Becky has. And I know that I have as well too. So if this conversation speaks to you, if there's someone in your life that needs to hear this conversation, maybe they want to join the community with Becky, please share this far and wide so that we can just take little pieces of people's stories and really just make a huge difference in the world. So until next time, thank you, Becky. So
Yes,
grateful.
thank you.
And
Thank
we'll
you.
catch you next time.